At long last, I've finally finished this ridiculous endeavor. If you want to know how I feel about this marathon, let me refer to a moment from part 1. This was the worst idea I've ever had! My sentiment hasn't changed. In fact, it's kind of worsened. Let me give you a word of advice. If you're new to Pokemon and you want to play all the mainline Pokemon games excluding the remakes, don't do what I did. Take your time. It'll make it much more pleasant. For this, the final part, I put in a little more effort than usual. Now, with that out of the way, let's finish this ridiculous marathon. Shall we? Once the game began, I picked a boy, named myself Groudon, got dressed, chose Froakie, and after a rival battle with characters I don't care about, the journey begins. After I barely won the first gym, I then spent the next hour or so being led around the region by a leash. Every time I thought I could just continue, the game says, "No! Go do that minor story beat that you missed." Now, while playing the game, I was trying to finish it before the end of the year, so I stressed myself out. I was hoping it'd be faster, and thus, I messed up my own expectations. So my opinions might not be accurate if I'd taken my time instead. So if I have some bad takes, it's my fault for rushing. So within the first 2 hours between the first and second gym, as well as fighting all the trainers along the way, I evolved Froakie, beat out the professor, got a Kanto starter, met the villain and the champ, battled my passing acquaintances, went on a Snorlax sidetrack mission which had no point at all, met the professor's assistants, rode a Rhydon, met Team Flare, missed Rock Smash, and finally reached the second gym. After beating it in a funny coincidence, I mean, I could get a crit, but that's doubtful. That's hilarious. I left the gym and proclaimed, thankfully in a recording, "You know what, I don't care about X and Y." So I decided to look up a speed run and follow along. And I'm going to speed through the rest of the main game with little moments to break up the monotony. So I picked up a bike, bullied Team Flare's whack outfits, beat a Lucario, and met this trainer type. It's your fault. And lost to this girl 7 times. I didn't record some of these losses, but trust me, it doesn't matter too much. After that fiasco, I left the cave, evolved Frogadier, beat the 3rd gym, acquired Lucario, got on a train, beat Serena and the 4th gym, stopped Team Flare from doing something at the power plant, I don't know. Saw a 10-foot guy, beat the 5th gym, got dragged into a new route to hear a scary story, beat the 6th gym, stopped Team Flare from robbing a Pokeball factory, and encountered them bullying in Abomasnow, and beat the 7th gym. It was around here that I realized something. The game's plot just increased pace by a few speeds. And it's not because of the speedrun. I was doing a horrible follow-along. I kept running into trainers along the way. The reason was that there was just less stuff that happened in between plot points. And that's really stupid. Why'd they feel the need to cram a bunch of nothing into the beginning and then just push the plot forward in increments? It gave me all the breathing room in the universe, then put me on a treadmill to rush past the rest of the plot. That's not how you make a Game Freak. Anyway, Team Flare declared that they wanted to end the world. I found their secret base and made my way to the basement, where I then proceeded to ignore an exposition dump. After that, I went to Geosenge and stopped Team Flare once and for all, and caught Yveltal. I then beat up the professor and my friends, tracked down the 8th gym leader, and beat him. I opened up Victory Road, beat Serena, and entered the Pokemon League. I then doused Malva, rusted Wickstrom, conquered Drasna, and critiqued Cybold. Diantha speaks for herself, she's trash. And I entered the Hall of Fame and beat up Big Lad and ended the game. Now I have to wonder, why'd they make the post-game so weird to activate? Previously, all you had to do was just walk a little and it began. But here, after you do that, you have to go to a new island and, without provocation, battle in the Battle Chateau, which activates a Serena battle, where she tells you to meet the professor next to the sundial in Anastar City to get a Mega upgrade for your Mega Ring, which begins the post-game story. I could go on a rant about how stupid this was, but time is money. Before I get into the Looker episode, let me preface it by saying I have no idea where anything in Lumio City is, and that's a me thing. So I met Looker in the city, and he told me to go get 5 tickets. I got lost. Next mission, he told me to find some delinquent kids. I lost to a preschooler. Next mission was to confront a gang. I lost to their leader. Next mission was to stop an art vandal, which turns out was the letter E. Turns out that E was this girl that Looker had temporarily adopted while in Kalos, and a Team Flare scientist was using her to further his research. I couldn't care less. The whole time I was thinking, I can't believe they're treating my boy Looker like a complete buffoon. Anyway, I ended the Flare guy's plan, I don't care about his name, and Looker leaves to appear in Oras for a second. The only thing that I cared to do after that was catch Zygarde. I did, which ended Pokemon Y. After selecting my language, I FaceTimed the Alola region's professor, Kukui, where I told him my name. Unfortunately, I had to cut the call short due to my mom and I being busy packing. Cut to a random girl running from some guys in white, before something in her bag explodes and takes them somewhere. This overhead view of Melee Melee reminds me of the Diamond and Pearl remake theories. You know, where it was theorized they'd be the next games because the Alola region has representations of the real-life Hawaii's Diamond Crater and Pearl Harbor. That was a weird theory, but it was one I subscribed to. Mom and I had moved in and was taking a nap, so she had our Meowth wake me up. I got dressed and went exploring. Then a wild Yungoos attacked me. Then the 3 starters showed up and saved me. Kukui saw the whole thing and asked me to pick one. Come on, you know there was only one choice. Litten. No offense to the GOAT Rowlet, but Litten is my personal favorite of the 3. You can flame me in the comments if you want. Then this dude named How showed up and challenged me to a battle with Rowlet. Wrong choice, my guy. Then Kukui told me to look for the Island Kahuna, this region's gym leaders, if you will. And instead, I meet the girl from the intro. And the thing in her bag was a Pokemon. Then, like something out of the first episode of the anime, I protect the little thing from some Spearows. But the little blue cloud explodes, causing the bridge we're on to break. Thankfully, this weird totem rooster thing saves our lives, then pieces out. But not before dropping a weird-looking rock. Before we left, the girl, whose name is Lily, said her classic line. There it is. Into the bag, Nebby. After meeting the Island Kahuna and giving him the rock, I showed my mom my new cat and went to bed. Later, I went to a festival to celebrate the island deity, Tapu Koko. But before reaching it, I caught my next team member, Picky Peck. Before arriving at the festival, there were 2 spacesuit-wearing weirdos talking about the Lightbringer. Then left. I battled How again, won, and got praised by Tapu Koko. Lily showed up at my door to take me to Kukui's hut, where he said Reggie's classic line. Then a solar eclipse happened. I wish I could have seen it, though. Stupid clouds, thanks, Kyogre. Once inside, the professor gave me a Pokedex and shoved a Rotom into it. Oh no, the Pokedex can talk now. Moving along, I went to school where I got my butt kicked by the principal. After apparently graduating school after only 45 minutes of attendance, I head to the big city of the Alola region, Hau'oli City. I met the captain of the first trial of the Island Challenge, which is something I apparently want to do, and battled, him? I beat Ligma and headed to actually do the trial, but not before meeting this region's baddies, Team Skull. They're pretty funny if you ask me. After a short route, I reached the trial site, where Picky Peck beat up a giant rat. It's quad weak to fighting. Ha! He also evolved into Trumpy. Anyway, I got a Z Crystal, which is a phenomenon I didn't use until the end and the post game. I met up with the Space Suiters, who are called the Ultra Recon Squad, who are investigating the energies of Z Crystals. I met up with them again in a cave that Nebby went into, and battled the girl, Soliera, which caused Litten to evolve into Torracat. After fighting How again, I challenged the Island Kahuna, and Trumbeak was the MVP. I got Fightinium Z, grabbed the Flying Z Crystal, and met a weird-looking golfer girl. Then I met Samson Oak, and Mentine surfed to Akala Island. At this point, I decided to only film things that I feel matter, so if I skip some things, that's why. Once there, I met up with the professor and Lily, and coincidentally ran into the Island Kahuna and a trial captain. So I began my exploration of the island where I'm stopped by 2 tourists who look a little familiar. After a 30-minute break, I calmed down enough to beat up Cena so I could move on with the game. I met up with How in a weirdly western-themed town before going to the water trial and killing the Arachnid. My homie Watchwell keeps taking the W, and after that, I meet the actual rival of this game, Gladion, who has a weird-looking Pokemon with him. I respect Gladion, but Team Skull doesn't. Then this somehow happened right before I met up with the Recon Squad. Oh my god. How'd that happen? I had to redo the trial and fight Gladion again, but it was no biggie. Once meeting Professor Kukui's WWE persona, which is suspiciously like the whole thing with Clive in Scarlet and Violet. Glad the game's picking up the pace now. I beat the Marowak and continued exploring Akala. I ran into the Ultra Recon Squad talking to Colress. It's cool to see him again, and I noticed his glove typing is the same sound from his battle theme. After saying farewell, I went to get my next party member. Wimpod, then proceeded to the grass trial. The Lurantis gave me a bit of trouble, but I still won in the end. It was time to proceed to the grand trial, but I went to visit Kukui's wife's lab. Turns out it's a professor that everyone pretends to remember from a DSware game. I left and a weird distortion appeared in the sky, but went away pretty fast. I proceeded to Diglett's tunnel where I met some employees of the Ether Foundation, and Trumbeak evolved into Toucannon. I encountered a guy named Faba having trouble with Team Skull, but they went and cried to Team Skull's admin, Plumeria. She has to be one of my favorite characters in this game, even if she's barely in it. After she left, Wimpod evolved. Then I easily disposed of the kahuna, Olivia, which finished off Akala Island. Since I saved Faba, he offered us a free tour of Ether Paradise. Our tour guide, a woman named Wick, gave Hal some drugs and began the tour. Ether Paradise is basically an injured animal sanctuary where people take care of Pokemon until they're healed. The CEO of this haven is a woman named Lusamine, who's 43? Arceus, what kept her from aging? Then another portal showed up, and a jellyfish came out that looked a little like Lily. Golisopod emergency exited and the jellyfish disappeared. Turns out Aether Paradise is experimenting with Ultra Space with the aid of the URS. After that happening, I'll leave for the next island, Ula Ula. Whew, this game has a lot going on. But the best part is that I'm not bored. In fact, this marathon has burned me out on Pokemon. But this game has thrown some kindling back into the fire. Not much, but the flame is being kept from dying now. I went to a garden to find Kukui to tell him about my experience at Aether. Then I challenged Alola's only gym and evolved Torracat into Incineroar. Finally, I head to the bus stop to take me to the next trial. I go to Hokulani Observatory where this guy gives me the Steel Z crystal out of nowhere. After moving around some Chargebugs and almost killing them, I conquered the totem and beat the trial. I return to the garden to see Kukui is being harassed by Team Skull, but he's doing just fine. Then Team Skull's boss finally reveals himself, Guzma. After posing a pretty good question, I beat him with Golisopod. I proceed a good ways into the next route before acquiring my next team member, Togedemaru, or is it Togedemaru? I don't know. I ran into Gladion again, who mentioned something about a Pokemon called Cosmog. Then he left. I met the URS again and conquered the Ghost Trial. Then I got my next to last team member, Mimikyu, whom only took 4 encounters to find. Pretty lucky. I then found Team Skull and Plumeria at the Ghost Trial Captain's house and made me battle her. She left, but not before taking a Yungoos to Team Skull's base in Po Town. After receiving a Sharpedo ride from Grimsley, probably not to feed his crippling gambling addiction. After that, I made it to Po Town. An old man let me in, and slowly I made my way to Guzma. I did. I quickly dispatched his team and grabbed the Buginium Z. I also journeyed to the desert to grab the Psychic Z crystal, and went back to Esarola's house, where it turns out that Plumeria did a 4D chess move and went back to the house while we were away. They found Lily had Cosmog and took her to Aether Paradise. Gladion burst in. After a quick battle, we decided to head there ourselves. As we're leaving, the old man, Nanu, challenges me to a battle, and reveals he's the Island Kahuna. I win, finishing off Ula Ula. Turns out the Ether Foundation is the big bad of this game. We confront Faba, but he sends us on a wild goose chase. We reconfront him, and he yields. After fighting a few more Team Skull grunts, I had my final battle with Guzma before proceeding to Lusamine's mansion. I'm not going to explain this section in great detail, but the summary version is, Lusamine and Lily is Gladion's mom. Their dad got sucked into a wormhole, Lusamine went crazy, tricked the URS into helping her, and lost her mind with obsession. Now she wants Necrozma so she can look for him. If only I had told her that her husband's doing just fine. Oh well, silent protagonist's gonna silent protagonist. I had to battle her, but it didn't really do anything because she still opened a wormhole and she and Guzma went through it. What a stressful day this has been. We spend the night in the mansion and Lily gets a change in outfit. Then we head to the final island, Pony Island. After Lily and I said our goodbyes to Gladion, we went in search of the Island Kahuna, but instead ran into the ferry trial captain, Mina. She told us there was no Kahuna, but if we needed help on our journey, we should ask Hapu. I didn't record any of her scenes, so if you've never played Gen 7, this is coming out of nowhere. So I continued my exploration of the island and received the final ride poke from Hapu's grandma. This allowed me to get access to the chamber within the Tapu's shrine to witness Hapu becoming the new Island Kahuna. I went back to the marina and got access to a place called Executor Island. I had to go there to receive a flute I needed to go to an altar on the highest peak of Pony to summon the box art legendary. But before I could go into the canyon, Team Skull blocked the way and issued a final stand to try and stop me for some reason. Plumeria watched the whole thing, apologized, and handed me the Poison Z crystal. After entering the canyon, I battled Soliera one last time and began my trek through the vast canyon of Pony. It was a lengthy walk, and during said walk, I reached a precarious bridge that Lily ran across. She almost got knocked off by some Murkrow, but eventually we reached the end. And apparently there's an ancient trial site here, the Dragon type that trial. Mimikyu didn't even break a sweat, not even against the totem's ally, Sizer, and thus, after a walk up some stairs, we reached the summit. We became master flute players all of a sudden, and activated the altar. The altar shot a beam of light onto the center floor piece, and Nebi, I forgot to mention it had changed form earlier, went into the spirit bomb. The vast amount of energy caused it to become Lunala. Anyway, before we could finish asking Lunala for help, Guzma suddenly appeared out of nowhere. Lusamine followed suit and begged Lily and I to run. We didn't really get the chance to because Necrozma burst through the ultra wormhole that Guzma and Lusamine fell out of. I tried to challenge it, but it said,
"It's just a kid. Don't make me laugh."
Then it looked at Lunala. No cries were traded before they launched at each other in anger. The battle was epic, but swift, before Necrozma pulled a grapple maneuver and pinned Lunala to the ground before absorbing it into himself, becoming Dawn Wings Necrozma. The copious amounts of energy he was exuding caused ultra wormholes to open all over Alola, and the Tapus lent aid to the Kahuna so they could stop them. Meanwhile, I had to fight Necrozma, because he was attracted to the amount of light I had with me. He lost and thusly retreated back to his homeworld. The URS saw what happened, and offered their Solgaleo for me to travel into ultra space in order to chase him down. They pleaded me to stop him, or all light in all universes would be in peril. So into ultra space I went. I wish the tilt controls weren't the default setting, but I found a white portal and reached Ultra Megalopolis, where I met Dulce and Zossi, the URS members I would have had to experience in Ultra Sun. They pointed me towards the towers and told me to proceed with caution, but then I remembered that after the battle they'd give me a poi pull as thanks, so I left and grabbed a Bulldor, which won't get an animation, because it's not actually part of my team. After that, I climbed the tower and reached the top floor where Necrozma was gathering tons of energy around himself. Then a triangular prism came out of his head, and the attached segments on Lunala absorbed her light and exploded into a new form, Ultra Necrozma. Sensing my light once more, he challenged me to a fight before he began his crusade to fill his never-ending hunger for light. I ended him with a Z move from my Incineroar.
I'm just gonna let it play. Goodbye.
Necrozma melted away from Lunala and disappeared. The URS thanked me, offered poi pull, and after declining for now, Lunala took me home. After a bunch of thanks from all characters present, I went to the Pokemon Center to release Bulldor before beginning the final normal trial of the game. It's a lame trial. I had to go to all the previous captains to get petals for a flower. I didn't fight all of them, but I did get all the petals. Then I fought the Totem, which was a Rabombi. I underestimated it, but I didn't lose. With that done, it was finally time to face Hapu in her first grand trial challenge. She beat me once, but I got her the second time and received the next to last Z Crystal. I went to Mount Lanakila to face the Pokemon League, but Gladion stopped me to say thank you in his own way. He was kind of tough, but not too bad. He sent one of his best lines in the game and went on his way. I made my way through Victory Road and happened upon Necrozma, who fell from the ultra wormhole he made to try and escape. Since he was weaker, I caught him really easily, but he's not on the team yet. Colress showed up out of nowhere to give me devices to transform Necrozma, so I made my way to the Melee Shrine. Turns out Lily was there, and she offered Nebi to me so I could catch, which I did, and after using Colress's item, I acquired my final team member. Ultra Necrozma. After that, I grabbed the final Z Crystal, ICMZ, and proceeded to the final challenge of the Alola region. But before I entered the league, I watched this cutscene, which is one of my favorites in the game. Sure, it's simple, but it's full of meaning. Once that was over, I went inside, I smithed Mullane, rocked Olivia, creeped out Essarola, and breezed through Kahili. Beating them activated a floor tile that teleported me to the peak of Lanakila, where my throne awaited. Kukui approached me and congratulated me. Then he challenged me to a battle.
Woo! Just kidding.
He introduced Hop, and I'm figuring he beat the Elite Four before me. He waited until I arrived before he challenged me to earn his title of champion. I decided to test his skills by recreating the Ultra Necrozma battle by increasing his stats twice. Let's just say, if Hal had gone to Ultra Megalopolis in my stead, the world would be a lot less bright. Didn't stand a chance. You wouldn't have been able to beat Ultra Necrozma, Hal. You're too stupid. He took the beating like a champ and congratulated me. The Elite Four showed up to congrats me as well. Then we all went to Melee to celebrate Alola's first ever champion. Then the credits roll in an homage to Gold, Silver, Crystal, or Heart Gold and Soul Silver. I'm assuming this is to say farewell to the portable console market before going to the big time with the Switch. After being overstimulated by the amount of attention I received, I went to bed. Hal showed up the following morning to bring me along to Pony Island to find some stragglers from the wormhole incident. I said,
"Screw that, I got better things to do."
I went and explored more of Pony Island and entered a cave. I beat up Dexio and acquired a Mega Ring. Thanks, I guess. I got stopped by Looker and his boss, Annabelle. I'm surprised to see her. She's a frontier brain from Pokemon Emerald, but I couldn't show you that because one of my rules is to not do Battle Frontier stuff. So I went to the Ultra Wormhole, which was still open on the altar, so I could visit Nihilego, Guzzlord, Xurkitree, Pheromosa, Celesteela, Buzzwole, and Cartanda's homeworld. Wait a minute, there was only one more thing I wanted to do before killing a Stakataka. Find Kyogre. After 2 shiny Barbaricles in a row, I found him and killed him.
There was no other way.
Hold on, where's this footage coming from? After feeling better about seeing Dexio and Cena again, I finished the mission with the URS and returned home. Next morning, the electric trial captain came in and begged me for help in his virtual world, the Festival Plaza. Turns out that Team Rocket has returned. They've changed their name to Team Rainbow Rocket. Why did they change the name to that? I'm so glad you asked that. I don't know. Anyway, after using my guy Entei to fend off a grunt in the Battle Factory stand-in, I had to, it's part of the story, I swear, Sophocles booted them from the plaza. Of course it wasn't over. I watched a news bulletin from Lusamine on behalf of the Aether Foundation. Then a Team Rocket grunt punched the cameraman, and the guy, who I'm assuming is Giovanni, says he's going to take over the world, thus beginning the Team Rainbow Rocket episode. But before I got to Aether, I explored the rest of Pony Island and went to the Battle Tree. There I met Red and Blue, and Blue asked me who I wanted to fight. I picked him. I don't want to give myself too much credit, but I did a pretty good job against him. I was on equal level and didn't lose anyone. I'd go into detail on how I won, but this segment's long enough already. On to Aether. After dispatching some grunts, I come up to the Aether Mansion, and it's somehow changed into a really cool looking castle. But before Lily and I could enter, Faba stops us and tries to beat us, foolishly thinking that Lily would be a hindrance to me. He was dead wrong, so I went into the room that leads to the secret lab, but it was blocked off. We left the room and ran into more grunts. Then out of nowhere, Guzma shows up to help us out. The grunts proceeded to insult Team Skull, and Guzma finally enters Angie mode. Guzma and I beat down the grunts, and they retreated. Turns out that Rainbow Rocket has transformed the mansion into a Team Rocket-themed challenged funhouse, complete with the funny spin tiles, grunts acting like a bunch of fools with teleportation technology, the Simon game, and a version of the Persian statues from Gen 2, except it's Meowth this time. Each of those challenges are separate, and at the end of each is a door. In front of each door are 2 grunts guarding it. You have to beat them to see what's inside. And behind these doors are the leaders of every previous evil team from all the previous mainline Pokemon games. Archie and Maxie from Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald, Cyrus from Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum, and Lysander from X and Y. And Ghetsis from Black and White shows up after beating those 4. This is one of the coolest things Pokemon has ever done. This game is honoring generations past by having every evil team being represented here. I'm sure it's a final hurrah for all of them as another farewell to the mobile handheld consoles. Anyway, the coolest part is that they have their legendaries from each game. Archie has Kai, Maxie has a clone of me, and Ghetsis, Cyrus, and Lysander have a different legendary depending on the game. Okay, how'd this footage get here? After beating them, I pressed multiple switches, swapped a card, and witnessed Colress, who's representing Black 2 and White 2, send Ghetsis to the Shadow Realm. After all that, I finally get to confront the leader of Team Rainbow Rocket, Giovanni. He explains that he targeted the Aether Foundation because he wants to catch thousands of Ultra Beasts so that he can have an army of them. With that much power, he'd be nigh impossible to stop. He offers me to join Team Rainbow Rocket, but it wasn't a real offer, unfortunately. He put up a good fight, even throwing up Mega Mewtwo Y, but he was no match for my Golisopod and Cineroar tag team. With Giovanni defeated, Colress managed to reverse the Rainbow Rocket castle changes, sending Giovanni and the rest of Team RR out of this dimension. Everyone is happy, Faba gets demoted to intern, and Lily thanks us one last time before leaving. Somehow, Giovanni remained, brooding over his loss, but swears he won't give up, vowing to return one day. I don't know about you, but I'm waiting fervently for that day. Which concludes Pokemon Ultra Moon. I wanted to get this marathon over as fast as possible, so I decided to do another speed run of this game to supplement playing the game again for the marathon. So I set the required time, picked Boy, changed settings, and after being led around, I picked Sobble, while up top, and got scared by a puppy. After that, I caught a Wooloo, then deposited. After some more running around, I made it to the wild area, then lost to an Onix. I did that so I didn't have to walk all the way to Motostoke. But right before that, I picked up a few quick balls with the watts I grabbed from a raid. Once in the city, I got the water boosting item Mystic Water and met Team Yell. Then I left and went to the train station I was just at and caught a Slowpoke, then deposited it. I then rode the train to the Crown Tundra, lost a Peony, and did a Dynamax adventure and grabbed Suicune. I deposited Stobble and continued the main story. From here, the game became a cakewalk, besides some funky movement I had to do to skip trainers. But I still have to run through the plot points for the marathon's sake. So I smacked Bede, uprooted Milo, grabbed an Everstone, drowned Nessa, went to the Isle of Armor, grabbed some shrooms after bullying Avery, left the Isle, punched Bede, and battled Marnie. I then incinerated Kabu, I improved my bike, killed a Mudsdale, arrived in Hammerlock, beat Hop, and exercised Alistair. I proceeded to embarrass Bede in front of Rose, cursed Opal, caught a Pawniard, melted Melanie, cringed at Hop's self-pity, had some fun surfing through a route, vanquished Piers, and tamed Ryan. Once reaching Linden, I twisted Avery, acquired Kubfu, released Kubfu, chose the water tower and conquered it. I then went to the Pokemon League and crushed all my rivals' dreams, slept through Macrocosmos' stupid plot, beat the Elite Four, which comprised of Bede, Nessa, Alistair, and Raihan. Then after a battle with Chairman Rose, it was Eternatus time. He was no match for the power of the doggo. After that, I went to the island, caught Dedenne, and beat the unbeatable champion, and finally got a bathroom break. Crown Tundra first. I helped Calyrex achieve Kinghood once more before catching him, nabbed Regice, Regirock, and Registeel, then decided I'd go for Regidrago. I then hunted out Articuno, outran Zapdos, but before Moltres, I had to do the stupid post-game story where I had to beat the stupid Dynamax gyms. After catching Zamazenta, I had my final battle with Hawk, and finished off the main area of Galar. I returned to the Isle of Armor to confront Moltres, did some fetch questing with Hop, became a Black Belt, which ended the Isle of Armor. Then I reported my findings to Peony and gave him the final one that he somehow dropped. Then I got a phone call asking to take part in the Galarian Star Tournament. I picked Hop as my partner and wiped the floor with everyone. What better way to end it than with the blue Dynamax versus the red Dynamax? And after the woohoo text box went away, I ended my run. Oh. No more. I didn't have any previous splits because I made a new timer for Shield. Speaking of Shield, I just finished it, which means I'm finally done with this marathon! Oh my gosh, I'm not doing this ever again. Sorry that this completely took over the channel. I wish I could have gotten this done faster, but it is what it is. I hope you enjoyed it. Anyway, that's it for now. Like and sub or I'll do a funny dance.